I'm Scott Weatherly. Welcome to 20th Century Geek. In the last episode, Mike and I discussed our time in the ring, our experiences in the squared circle as John Bull and Mad Mike, discussing the companies we'd worked for, the guys we'd worked with, some of our anecdotes, some of the stories of how we got on, what we did, places we worked. It was a real trip down memory lane for the both of us. And now the conversation continues, and in this episode we are going to get deep into real 90s wrestling. Some of the stars, the promotions, some of the big events that went on throughout that decade. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you stick out to the end, because this is a long one. But let's go back and start. So let's travel back to the early 90s. Where were you in 1990 or around that era? Late 80s, early 90s. Where were you?
Sorry, I'm trying to think. I was in Chicago at some stage at that time, and I did some work for Titan Sports, which was WWE at the time. As a kind of part of the drama course that I was doing in Chicago, in Champaign, Chicago. So I was doing some work for them out there, and then I came back when SummerSlam came to England, which I think was 92.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was SummerSlam 92.
I can see the video. I can see the VHS case.
Yes,
in my head.
That's exactly the silver vision.
Yeah.
That was 92.
Okay.
So yeah, I was out there.
So were you watching wrestling at the time? Were you?
I've been watching wrestling since WrestleMania 1.
Oh really?
Wrestling. Yeah. Well, prior to that, I mean, World of Sport. I was watching Big Daddy Joe and Haystacks. And when they came to like Reddy Carr Sports Centre in Merthyr Tydfil, then I used to go there and watch them there. And
so you had exposure to the American product in the 80s, like in the.
Oh yeah. I remember that I was helping strip a neighbour's wall of wallpaper across the road, the Thomases, and they said, "Oh, is there wrestling on tonight? Do you like wrestling?" I said, "I love wrestling." They said, "This is American wrestling." I hadn't seen American wrestling at that stage. I said, "Right, okay." And they said, "Yeah, it's called WrestleMania." I said, "Oh, cool, yeah, sounds good." He says, "Ask your mum and you can come across and watch it with Andrew." So I said, "Okay." So I went across the road and watched it with Andrew, and it was, of course, WrestleMania 1.
84?
84, 85, something
84,
like that.
yeah.
So I mean, at that age, I was hooked.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, "Wow!"
Very different products, aren't they?
Well, yeah, because I mean, I was listening to one fall and was it 3 falls, a knockout, submission,
rounds,
3 rounds,
proper rounds.
But it wasn't like that. It was like, well, hang on, when are they going to ring the bell for the round? What's going to happen? That's a disqualification.
They're wearing bright colours.
Yeah. What the hell's going on?
They've got black people in the ring. It was a very different product.
It was a really, really strange kind of like introduction into sort of like the different styles. But I loved British wrestling. Don't get me wrong. I loved World of Sport.
No, I love World of Sport. That was my first introduction.
It was World of Sport, and then I kind of became a fan. Got very lucky and fortunate to be able to do the stuff that I kind of did in my career, not wrestling, but my career, just sort of like in theatre and stuff. And then met lots of people when I was in America. I met lots of them. I met Hogan, I met the Warrior, I met Owen Hart, I met Bret Hart, and all these people, and things. All these people that actually, are considered legends today. And it, to me, it was just, it didn't mean anything as much as what it should have meant, because it was just
in the moment. It never does.
In the moment, it never does. So it was, and I think that was my main exposure to the world of thing. And then, of course, that it catapulted after SummerSlam 92. It kind of catapulted into Monday Night War,
which we'll get into in a minute. And I think that's the for me, it was a bit of a different. I didn't really see it in the 80s. I had to go back, and a lot of like a lot of the 80s stuff was I had to go back retrospectively and see. It was probably, well, to be fair, I started secondary school in 1993. Okay,
that makes me feel so old.
But before I remember quite vividly about, it must have been 1990. I moved, and 1990 I moved primary school.
Right.
And when I left, one of the lads
I was living on my own then.
Yeah.
I was like 15 or so.
So was I.
Yeah.
When I changed primary school, I remember the day I left, I remember being quite upset about it, because you're leaving all your friends. And I wasn't moving far. I was literally moving down the road. It was mainly because I was thick, and my parents thought I would be better off at a different school, and they weren't wrong. But when I left, a lad I suppose I was friends with, really, a lad called Doug Jones, came over to me to cheer me up, gave me part of his collection of the WWF trading cards at the time.
Wow, okay.
But I was collecting them. I remember it was one of those things that, like need, got, need, that sort of thing. Trading off in the playground, that sort of thing. Like, here's all my swaps, and then I'd have the thing.
Yeah.
And he just gave me, we're going to miss you, and gave me these. It was almost like a going away present. It was very weird. But I can remember, there must have been like 6 of them, so it was about a pack's worth. But I remember being in there. There was Randy Savage, Big Boss Man, Sergeant Slaughter,
Yeah.
the Mountie.
Oh, yeah. Mountie, Ray Rougeau.
Yeah, and Hulk Hogan.
Terry Boyle.
Yeah, so there was these. That's all I can remember from this deck. But to me, I that's all I knew them as. Really, I knew of the thing. I knew of wrestling, and I'd probably seen snippets of it. But to me, they were basically like top trumps cards. That's how they were to me. Was some brightly coloured guy, or a Georgia prison guard, or a Mountie, or an accountant.
IRS, yes.
These weird characters that were like just huge guys. And it wasn't until probably the early 90s, actually, when Sky started to take off in the UK, and they started to present WWF programming on Sky, and I was able to watch it at a friend's house. And that's when I really got exposure to it. And I started watching, and I was like, what is this? This is amazing. And it was just one of those things that, like you say, it just hooked me. But it was in the early 90s. I remember being like, really into... And I went back. And
What was your first sort of like major pay-per-view that you watched?
I've got a feeling it was... I have got a real feeling. The first one I saw on television... Not on video, and it wasn't live because obviously the time difference, and I was like 10. What was WrestleMania? It would have been the WrestleMania. No, it would 1991 WrestleMania.
WrestleMania 7.
7. And I can't remember anything about it, but I just remember it was 1991. It was the WrestleMania.
Was, Hulk Hogan versus Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah. That's the first one.
My mind is terrible.
Yeah.
That's why I remember shit like this.
But I can't remember much. I really can't remember anything about it. But I just know that was it. And then after that, I remember sort of like say for some reason, SummerSlam '92 really stands out in my head. I think I had it on video.
That was Hogan Warrior against.
That's why it stands out.
Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah. I just remember it being a double VHS cassette box when it came out and bits like that. I remember.
Okay, I don't remember that.
It was an orange case.
Yeah.
And it had the SummerSlam logo, and then like 92 across the bottom, and there was the picture of the forum on the front. I just remember it. I can just picture it in my head.
Okay.
And then from there, I just remember just like getting snippets of it, and it's been on video and on Sky. And even now, I can't remember whatever the TV show was, whatever they called it at that time. Wrestling,
like Primetime Wrestling, Superstars Wrestling was on as well.
That's it. Primetime Wrestling was what it was. That was one I watched. I remember watching that and being like, But the thing was, even then, whilst I enjoyed the matches, I loved the promos and the skits. I loved the bits in between. I loved the bits that made the matches important.
Yeah.
And that was always what hooked me. Because basically it's a soap opera that results in a fight.
It's EastEnders in spandex.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Which is what EastEnders will eventually become. But no, it was exactly. And I was just hooked. I remember, but I moved away from it just because of having access to it, really. But it was always in the back of my mind. I'd always, it would be, and during the 90s as it escalated, there would be bits going on, and then when it really kicked off, sort of like late 97, 98, that's when I got really back into it. And then. So
you're thinking Attitude Era?
Attitude Era was me being dragged back into it. There are three things, like say, in my wrestling watching history that like have pulled me in, and I'd probably say early 90s, WrestleMania 7, seeing that and being like, I've got to see more of this. Late 90s, and we're going to talk about it when we go through the history of it, was Pillman's Got a Gun.
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay?
Yep.
And it was, I just remember it being like on the news.
Mm.
It was on the news. They were like, "This has happened," where basically they pulled the Americans were a bit up in arms about this, and the BBC were like, "Well, whoa." We're all sort of like flustered about it, that they were swearing in it. There was all this violence, and there was a guy with a gun, and I was just like, "What?"
Austin had a gun as well.
No, he didn't. I watched it the other day.
Did he
No, just Brian Pillman.
Oh, I thought it was, okay.
And it is seriously one of the worst acted, but best segments. I've watched it back now.
Yeah.
But Pillman's Got a Gun pulled me in, and all of a sudden I was like, who? Stone Cold Steve Austin? I'm in love. This is amazing.
Yeah, this is good.
And then I watched it, and again, like, you sort of don't sort of fall away from it, but I think early 2000s, the Invasion era, sort of, I didn't stop watching it, but then I think again, I probably stopped watching it for a year, and then in the 21st century, Undertaker versus Jeff Hardy in the ladder match.
Oh, right, yes, yeah.
It
was on a
2001, 2002?
something like that. It was on a Raw.
It was Raw.
It was a Raw match.
Yeah, it was on Raw.
It was Ruthless Aggression.
Yeah. But it was Taker as the American Badass.
Yes.
And it was I'll Make You Famous. It was when he was doing that thing, I'll fight me and I'll make you famous. And Jeff Hardy came out and they had a ladder match, and Jeff Hardy would not lie down. And I remember, like, my heart was in my mouth.
A great match.
Oh, even
Great
now.
match.
I went back and watched it again. So good. It's so good.
Because Taker's on the mic and stay down.
Yeah, and he's like begging him, like, stay down. And Jeff Hardy keeps getting up. At the end of it, like, he beats him, and then he gets him up and stuff. And I was just like,
Gives him a few jackknives, doesn't he?
oh, he fucking hammers him.
Oh, last rides. A few last rides.
He batters him, but amazing. And then I was hooked again, and that was it. And I was off to the races again. But that's a 10-year period, right? So let's say 2001, I think, is the ladder match. Take. I think I'm sure it's around summer. I think it's summer 2001.
Like
it was just after the invasion, WWE, WCW, ECW invasion.
WrestleMania 2000 was sort of the four-way main event.
Yeah, 2001 is WrestleMania 17, which was Austin The Rock.
And number 16 was Austin Rock as well.
Yes, but that was like the
17 was that stupid Big Show.
Yeah.
And Floyd Mayweather.
No, that was much later. That was 19.
Oh no, it was that.
Was it later than that, actually?
Wasn't it that player it was Bam Bam Bigelow versus that? Oh no, I'm thinking.
WrestleMania 17 is WrestleMania 17 is definitely X7 was definitely on the cover. It was Rock Austin was the main event. But other thing in 2001, just jumping all over the place. But 2001. Which we shouldn't be because it's 20th Century Geek. Shane McMahon versus Kurt Angle at King of the Ring.
Oh, it was awesome. That was awesome.
He suplexes him through he tries to suplex him through the Titantron.
Yeah.
Doesn't break, so he just grabs him and puts him head first with the glass. Man, that was a brutal match.
Shane was just awesome.
Yeah. Well, so was Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was.
Oh, Kurt. Yeah, it just that guy. To me, that guy made wrestling fun again. And made it. It made it look like a legitimate wrestling match.
He had a level of
people like him, Eddie, Benoit.
Yeah, the New Radicals.
Yeah, they were proper wrestlers. Jericho.
Yes, I love Jericho. Even to this day, I love Jericho.
Totally. Yeah.
But this is what we're saying.
I have a story about Jericho, don't I?
Yes.
I've seen quite a lot of Jericho.
Yes, you have. But we'll save that for another podcast.
Time. Yeah.
When we do a heavy metal podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's go back to the 2000s. Oh, sorry, the early 90s. So the early 90s, there was the product.
Warriors just left.
Warriors left.
Yeah, because he wins the title in 91.
Yeah.
Drops in January 92 in the Rumble against Slaughter.
But the product is still very much as it would have been in the 80s. It's like it's still brightly coloured.
But yeah,
pretty family friendly. It's pretty straightforward, and I still remember it being very sort of like neon.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I go back and watch it now, the story elements.
It's very very good guy, bad guy.
It's very clear cut.
Very much.
Very morally clear cut. And the matches, the matches stand up, don't get me wrong. There's some matches that really do stand up. If you ever go back and watch, to the 80s, even, if you go back and watch any like Steamboat match or Randy Savage or anyone like that, those matches really stand up to the test of time. but the storylines do not. What was getting me hooked in 91 when I was 10, you go back and watch it now, some of it is awful. And I think that was the thing, like, it was aimed at kids. It was very fluffy and very sort of, over the top and very dramatic. Wrestling became, although I was still enjoying it as a kid, by like 92, 93, wrestling was becoming really like uncool.
Yeah. You had the Dog, the Clowns, the Yokozuna.
It was still really heavily gimmicked. It
was all little Duke the Dumpster or so. It
was really gimmicky, like over the top gimmicks.
Yeah.
And the 90s, even the early 90s, like there's a big change, and I think part of it is down to like the end of the Cold War. And these other things, because you get things like when the grunge music scene has started to grow. So kids that were sort of like probably into wrestling in the 80s were now into sort of like grunge, and it was all about being depressed and all that kind of thing in the music. But above everything else, like the wrestling hadn't moved with the times, really, had it? And the times had changed. I mean, like you say, you get in America in particular, over here we were sort of always grim and gritty. That was just sort of the way Britain was. And it sold over here because it was something different. But in the States, it's really passé. When you look at it now, you're like, I can see why it was beginning to fall behind the times. I mean, in the early 90s, heavy metal was really booming as well. Like Metallica's Black Album takes off in the early 90s. The culture was really moving. And I personally think WWF 91, 92 was suffering from what the WWE is suffering from now. As just this sort of like bland level of creativity because there was nothing to compete against.
Yeah. I think yeah. I mean, and there was a lot of promotions around at that time that were doing the same stuff.
But you got to remember, in the early 90s, WWF was still a monopoly. It was a pretty much monopoly.
Yeah.
There was still local promotions, and a couple of like the NWA was still doing stuff in the States. Jim Crockett Promotions was the second largest promotion in America.
You had ECW as well, which was
ECW. East Coast Wrestling still only had a minor TV exposure. Did not have national TV exposure.
Oh, okay.
WWF was the only one that had national TV exposure in 1990 to 1991.
So you think it was a case of if it's not broke, don't fix it?
Exactly. I really feel that was it. Like Vince was very in that mindset of like, well, we're at the top. Why should I change anything? And I'm almost convinced that if we hadn't have had the conflict, I think you'd have seen the death of WWF like before the end of the century. I think they'd have.
There was times during the Monday Night Wars. Then, if you look in the documentary about that, then he said that they came very close to folding.
Financially, they were struggling. I mean, during the research, and I'm going to do an essay show on this, but Vince McMahon had pissed off Ted Turner over some TV scheduling stuff, and he'd also pissed off Jim Crockett because he'd bought out all the promotions, and Jim Crockett was trying to compete but couldn't. And Jim Crockett basically had to declare bankruptcy in '89 and sell off the JCP, the Jim Crockett Promotions. And Ted Turner was more than willing to buy it. And he bought it for a pretty handsome sum. I think it's a couple of mil. In 1990, he bought it.
Still a damn sight more than that in the long run, but still, yeah.
Well, the shocking thing is, at the end of all this, and we'll maybe get to the end of it later, but when you get to the end of all this, the other end of this is when WCW folds. And WWE eventually buy it in 2001. They bought it. Now they buy over a decade's worth of video, matches, the whole library. Right? They buy
contracts of the people.
25 select contracts, so they could choose the 25 contracts they wanted, and also creative rights to certain things with the WCW brand and all sort of stuff. Also, as well, was one other thing is the fact of like the contracts they didn't buy as part of the takeover still had to be paid out by Turner. Yes, which is amazing. I didn't even know that, but Hogan was being paid by AOL to like Turner Industries until like 2006. Like it's ludicrous. So Ted Turner paid a couple of mil for JCP in 1990. How much do you think Vince paid for WCW? He was around about 80,000, something like that. It was 3 million.
3 million?
3 million.
Wow.
The price stayed about the same.
Wow. I didn't know it was as much as that. I thought it was around about in the...
Put this into context. Right, this is, say, 10 years later. All right, and so even ranging for inflation. But so this is a promotion that has struggled and failed, but you've still got an absolute wealth of cracking material in there. So I'm not going to downplay what WCW did.
A lot of good marketing stuff there, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Think about this from another. So there's another brand which suffered from some bad brand exposure and was then sold off. Star Wars. So Star Wars is a massive thing. All right. Just the film side of it.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
No.
Don't like it, do you? Not a sci-fi person. But then obviously they did the prequels, and it was all, there was a tarnished thing there, right?
The prequels. So we pretend they didn't exist.
But you've still got a tarnished brand that they wanted to sell off, right?
Yep.
And despite all the marketing that goes with it, that went for $4 billion. Disney paid $4 billion.
Wow.
For Lucasfilm. Vince paid $3 million for WCW.
Uncle George.
That to me is ludicrous. But the reason they get there is because, I mean, Ted Turner bought JCP just to try and put Vince out of business. That was the reason he bought that. He bought it and was like, right, I'm going to hand this off to someone.
Well, he had much more money than Vince as well.
He was like,
could throw countless amounts of money at it. And the thing is, he did.
He didn't. This is the thing. This is what I found out. I didn't realise. He basically hired in Bischoff and said, go put Vince out of business. That's a very general term. And it was almost like, just do it. You know what you're doing, you do it. So he had the keys to the kingdom. And he just went.
But Turner still funded it.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He was basically sort of like, here's my checkbook.
Yeah.
Go put Vince out of business. And I think
which is why WCW was able to draw so many people there, because the money was good, the schedule was shorter.
It was.
You know,
and they got offered creative control.
Oh, totally. I mean, people like Piper, Kurt Hennig, Luger, all these people that sort of like were lured back from.
Well, even like I say, the early ones like Hogan, Savage, they went straight away. Yeah, and Nash. The thing was though, so when you look at, were you a WWF or WCW in the 90s?
Well, I watched them both, but WWF all the way. I've always been loyal to WWF.
Yeah. I had minimal knowledge and exposure to WCW, I think, but doing this and going back and watching some of the matches, and I watched a couple of pay-per-views and that sort of thing, and there's a couple of guys now I don't really know, and there's a couple of guys that go on to become bigger and better things. Some stunning, some so it's an interesting thing. But the more I watched it and the more I read about this, and I don't know what you think about this, but WCW, basically sealed its own death warrant the moment they started buying up the big talent from WWF.
Okay.
So the thing I see is, and again, I feel this happened a little bit with the WWF a little bit, was it forced Vince's hand in the end. But when Bischoff was forking out all this cash, all he was really doing was saying, you can work for us because you'll bring the fans with us. That was the expectation. You'll bring the fans with you. And they did, right? But these are still guys that even in that point were probably in their late 30s, early 40s. And he's saying, you've got a multi-million-dollar contract for the next 10 years. Well, they're not going to be working for the next 10 years. So basically, you are basically building a reliance on a brand that is not going to live as long as you're paying it. Like, even then.
And that's when Vince started trademarking all his names and owning things. Because, I mean, WCW's appeal was the fact that people tuned in to see who was going to turn up next.
Yes. And that's what I mean. So that was where the shock value came from WCW. So really, doing that, Vince, and I'm not going to just credit Vince, but so let's say WWF had to react, and in reacting, they had to rely on younger, less tested guys. And it was, I think they struck gold with some of their workers that they didn't have. So there are guys, and I'm going to be honest. If there are several cases. Mick Foley as Cactus Jack.
Well, he wasn't Cactus Jack, though, was he?
He was. Well, he was in
WCW.
in
Yeah,
WCW.
I mean, I thought you were thinking about when he came to WWE.
No. Well, that's what I'm saying. When in
Right.
WCW,
Yeah.
Mick Foley, Steve Austin, stunning Steve Austin.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some others actually.
Dustin Reynolds.
Yeah, there you go. The one, yeah, and Jericho to an extent as well. And
Jericho was very underused. Well, Jericho was great in WCW as well.
he was the Lionheart and that's the thing.
Yeah.
But the point is, all three of them, if you use those, all those four of those, hit a ceiling.
Eddie.
Yeah, all these guys hit a ceiling that was put in place by former WWF workers that were being paid millions and had been given a certain level of creative control. So, I mean, by the late 90s, you were never ever going to get past the NWO unless you were part of the NWO. So you were never going to beat Hall, Nash, Hogan, and whoever the hell else was in it.
Everyone by the end of it, wasn't it? It was just ridiculous.
So Vince had no other choice but to actually turn to these guys and go, do you know what? You're never going to get any higher than this in the WCW. So I'll tell you what, I'm not going to pay you as much, but I'm going to give you a chance to work more and be more creatively open. Do what you want. Be yourself. And granted, and that's what they had to do. And that's why I think you get, in the late 90s, you get Stone Cold Steve Austin. You get Mankind in the form that worked for Mick Foley. Eventually you get the real Jericho, and then you get the New Radicals when they come across, and apart from Perry Saturn having to love a mop.
Yeah, bless him.
But you get
Undertaker. Mark Carlash.
Exactly.
91 he came across to WWE.
But all that creative freedom. I don't you think about this, but all that creative freedom they gave them to do these things is what eventually allowed WWE to win, the WWF to win.
But I disagree with you on the fact that they were given creative freedom in WWE, because they weren't. They were given. They found their niche, didn't they? They found their. They thought, right, this is the demographic we're going to go to. I know you got people like Vince Russo then,
who I'll definitely give credit to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he wrote some really good shit. There was some stuff that was written. I'm not sure by Russo, but certainly in the Russo era, that was like the Katie Vick angle. And you just kind of you just kind of go, what the hell?
Katie Vick, that was later. That's
no, Russo was still there then.
Was he?
Russo was still there because Russo always gets tarred with the brush of saying, he was a Katie, but he wasn't part of that. He was. It's not even my. It wasn't even my writing, dude. So and that's what he said.
If anyone's listening,
Google Katie Vick Big Show.
No, it's Kane.
It was Kane. Yeah.
Google Kane, Katie Vick, and you will see some really uncomfortable, awkward watching. It's yeah.
On Big Show's dad's funeral. Do you remember that one?
Oh my word, that was well. Let's just get. But all right, before all those, because those come a little bit later. We're talking about like Mark Henry and was it Mae Young
giving birth to a hand. Amazing television.
That went nowhere. Like I remember that happening, and then going, "What's that all about?" Don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
We've realised it doesn't work, so we've dropped it.
But you got DX.
Exactly.
You got DX, and I think that's the birth of the Attitude Era, isn't it?
Well, this is a good point, actually. So what would you say was the birth of the Attitude? Where do you see it starting? What kicks off the Attitude Era for WWE or WWF?
See, it's difficult. It's either DX or Stone Cold, really.
Those two are quite... Because
you got Stone Cold going with beating the crap out of Jake the Snake and being born at King of the Ring.
So that was 96.
And he was pouring alcohol down his throat and stuff like that.
And DX isn't until late 97.
I think Stone Cold. Again, don't cross the boss. Yeah, no, I think the start of the Attitude Era was the Vince McMahon, Stone Cold Steve Austin angle. Because that started before DX.
It started just before DX. That was that was in 97.
Yeah.
And the Don't Cross the Boss thing was the result of the Montreal Screwjob.
That was in 97, Montreal Screwjob, wasn't it?
Yeah, like October, November time. Survivor Series.
Yeah, Survivor Series 97, but I'm sure the Austin McMahon thing happened before that. It must have. It must have, because you've got Austin versus Bret Hart.
Yeah, 13.
At Mania.
Which is Mania 13, which is...
That year, 97.
97.
Yeah.
So it started building, but but Vince didn't come out as like the owner and the baddie heel until after the Montreal Screwjob, did he? So let's just because we're talking about terms here, though. I'm assuming some listeners will understand some of it. The Montreal Screwjob, just to give a quick high-tense overview, is Bret Hart had been loyal to WWF for many, many, many years, and a great worker, someone I actually really enjoy working. A little bland, to be fair, but still a really good technical worker.
Yeah.
But was offered more money and more creative control at WCW, and had run to the end of his contract with WWF. And had said, I'm not going to break the contract like some of the other guys have done. I will work out my contract, and then I'm going to WCW, and wanted to leave quite amicably.
Yeah.
And that involved, he said, I will hold the title, but I will drop the title and give it to you for you to do a tournament.
He didn't want to drop the title in his own country.
He said he didn't want to lose it. He didn't want to lose the title in
the next night on Raw if you wanted to.
Yeah, and I'll then I'll hand it off to someone on my last Raw. Vince, to his face, agreed this, and then behind his back arranged for something else to happen. So at Survivor Series, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. The match goes on, and Shawn Michaels gets Bret Hart into a sharpshooter, which is one of Bret Hart's own moves. Vince runs out, or is already out, and runs out, and directs referee Earl Hebner to count the match. 1, 2, 3, and then hands the belt to Michaels, who was like hugely over at the time, and then that's it. And that night, apparently, Bret backstage punched Vince in the face. Don't blame him, to be perfectly honest. There's a lot around this. There's a lot of people who have different stories, and I think Shawn Michaels is like, I didn't know. I was just told to do something. I did it for the boss, that sort of thing.
It's interesting on Beyond the Match, isn't it? When you watch the Beyond the Match thing. How that all unfolds.
Yeah, and I do feel for him, Shawn Michaels, at the time. I think he was put in a really difficult position. I don't
know. He was a very different Shawn Michaels.
He was. That's true. I would agree with that. Yeah, he was a very egotistical, very young sort of person. But it happened, and after that, we get the Bret screwed Bret.
Yeah.
Interview.
And Vince McMahon becomes the biggest heel in the business.
But this is my point about the whole thing. Overnight, but in some people would have tried to brush it under the carpet and like ignored it. No, we'll move on. And this is the credit I will give to Vince. Because he's not stupid. We could use this. Let's go with this. I will become the boss, Vince McMahon, and it builds the character, like the swagger.
Because DX has already come out by this stage, because on the next night on Raw after Screwjob, DX introduces Bret the Hitman Hart.
But they're not called. But they're not called. This was the weird thing. I didn't realize they weren't called DX until a little bit after this. But they were together.
No, they were. They were called DX before this.
Are you sure?
Because it was against the Canadian Stampede.
Canadian
Stampede, because they had an In Your House called DX.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought it was slightly after that. Okay.
No. There was a thing called DX. They feuded with Bulldog and Hitman and Owen and
so for me,
because they had Canadian Stampede.
Oh, okay.
Come prior to that.
So with that in mind, so the Montreal Screwjob. Are you saying that you feel that was the real kickoff to the?
No, I don't know. I think the introduction of DX was certainly, that was Attitude Era. Yeah. I think Stone Cold, Jake Snake. It's hard. I think DX.
It's a blur. I don't think this is a clear-cut thing. Like all things in history, it's not a moment. It's not a light switch.
The moment happens, and I can't remember when though. When Vince McMahon goes on television and says, "It
has been said that anything can happen here in the World Wrestling Federation, but now more than ever, truer words have never been spoken. This is a conscious effort on our part to open the creative envelope, so to speak, in order to entertain you in a more contemporary manner. Even though we call ourselves sports entertainment because of the athleticism involved, the key word in that phrase is entertainment. The WWF extends far beyond the strict confines of sports presentation into the wide-open environment of broad-based entertainment. We borrow from such program niches like soap operas, like The Days of Our Lives, or music videos such as those on MTV, daytime talk shows like Jerry Springer and others, cartoons like the King of the Hill on Fox, sitcoms like Seinfeld, and other widely accepted forms of television entertainment. We in the WWF think that you, the audience, are, quite frankly, tired of having your intelligence insulted. We also think that you're tired of the same old simplistic theory of good guys versus bad guys. Surely the era of the superhero who urge you to say your prayers and take your vitamins is definitely passé. Therefore, we've embarked upon a far more innovative and contemporary creative campaign that is far more invigorating and extemporaneous than ever before. However, due to the live nature of Raw and the War Zone, we encourage some degree of parental discretion as relates to the younger audience allowed to stay up late. Other WWF programs on USA, such as Saturday Morning Live Wire and Sunday Morning Superstars, where there's a 40% increase in the younger audience, obviously, however, need no such discretion. We are responsible television producers who work hard to bring you this outrageous, wacky, wonderful world known as the WWF. Through some 50 years, the World Wrestling Federation has been an entertainment mainstay here in North America and all over the world. One of the reasons for that longevity is as the times have changed, so have we.
That's the first acknowledgement, because that's when they actually called it
The Attitude
Era. That's when they started using the branding.
The Attitude
Era. Yeah, that's when they started using branding. But I think the change in booking and the change in style, I think it comes a lot earlier than that. I think even as far as early as like mid '96.
Yeah.
I think Austin being able to do his thing, because like I say, King of the Ring.
Well, extending the middle finger.
Yeah,
that
was
the whole
May.
Austin character.
Is that a May '96? Like King of the Ring, around May time. Late spring, early summer '96. You've got, he basically coins Austin 316. July is Pillman's Got a Gun.
Yeah.
And then you're off to the races, really, because that's when you get.
I think that's Attitude Era. Though,
yeah, because that's when you get was it the Nation of.
So Raw is War.
Raw is War was '95. They started calling it Raw is War.
Yes, is the thing. Is when does it start? Then
it's a drip feed. It builds and builds and builds. Because then like '96, '97, that's when you get like the Nation of.
Nation of
Domination.
We are the Nation.
Yeah, which is like Farouk
The Rock.
and the Rock when he is the Rock. He's
D'Lo Brown.
D'Lo Brown. I love D'Lo Brown.
Godfather.
Yeah,
It's Kuma Mustafa.
So you had like there was either the things, and you had when did Mick Foley join as Mankind?
Well, he came '94, I believe.
Over to
WWF as Mankind.
Okay,
and in '95 he was doing the Boiler Room Brawl.
Yeah,
'95, '96, something like that.
And that's when because he started to change around that, and that's the thing. Like when he stopped wearing the brown, and started wearing the shirt and the tie and that sort of thing is again a bit of a.
Well, it was the Mr. Socko era.
Well, Socko came.
Yeah,
I didn't realise that Socko. I found it when do you think Socko was introduced? What's Socko's first appearance?
90. Oh God! So you're testing my Mick Foley.
I am,
bastard. Socko was 95.
I can't tell the year, but I can tell you the segment. No, so it's later than 95.
Sure
it's during the Vince.
Vince was in hospital.
It's during the Vince and Stone Cold.
Hey, Vinny, how you doing?
Yeah, he comes in and he brings. So it's 97, I think it is 97.
You got a boo boo.
and Stone Cold.
Al Snow's idea.
Yes. So that was 97 when Socko was introduced. I love that section, that segment. That's that little thing that is when he's trying to cheer him up and he brings out the balloons. He brings in the clown. And then there's a doctor stood in the background in scrubs, and he's like, "I'll deal with him, nurse."
Yeah.
It turns around, it's Stone Cold. There was
the enema.
It's ridiculous. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, we're talking a lot of WWF, which shows, I think, our love for WWF Attitude.
Yeah,
but to me, Stone Cold was the boss. I mean, everything he did, from riding a Zamboni to the ring, or the beer truck, throwing the Rock's championship into the river.
Well, the Rock and Stone Cold were the headliners.
Yes.
I mean, there's no two ways about it. As much as you can say unfortunately about Mankind was semi-main event.
He was never conventional enough to be main event.
No, but he was amazing.
He was. Oh yeah. I mean,
someone come in and beat the Undertaker. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing of saying these things, of like these things that happen. The first Hell in the Cell match, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels.
Oh yeah, Bad Blood.
Yeah, which is a great match, but then it ends with Kane, because they've been teasing Undertaker, like Paul Bearer.
Kane, yeah.
Oh yes,
my Undertaker. I can't do that.
Yeah, he's a love Paul Bearer.
Percy Pringle.
Yeah, God rest his soul. One of the amazing, but he was teasing for ages, wasn't he? And then eventually,
Yeah.
like, it went red, and like this huge monster walks out and rips the door off the Hell in a
Dr.
Cell.
Isaac Yankem.
Yeah. Yes, because he was a dentist.
He was a dentist. And he was fake Diesel.
Yes,
he was fake Diesel. Yeah, Dr. Isaac Yankem.
Yeah, the introduction of Kane. So that's another like, standout moment to me. I don't remember. I remember not watching it at the time, but even going back and watching it, you're like, that was brilliant. So yeah, I think there was so much going on in the WWF that I can't believe it was losing out in the ratings war. Like for 2 years, pretty much 2 years straight, WCW was winning. So I was like, okay, when I was researching this, I was like, okay, I've got to go back and see why. Mm-hmm. Now, is it, now this could be the question, is it because I have an affinity for all of the WWF characters that when I actually went back and watched the WCW stuff, WCW stuff, I'll cut this now. When I went back and watched the WCW stuff, I was a bit like, it's alright, but there was nothing that was blowing me away.
Okay.
Even the NWO stuff was like just a little flat to me.
See, there were standout matches in WCW for me. There was stuff like Chris Jericho versus Team Malenko. You know, Man of 1,001 Holes. Okay, so then Chris Jericho comes out and says, "Well, you know, you might be the man of 1,001 holes, but I'm the man of 1,002 holes." And he gets his list out, and he's going, right, number 1, armbar. Number 2, headlock. Number 3, and then it cuts to commercial, and he comes back and he goes, and it comes back to him and he's got number 748, you know, and stuff. And their matches together was brilliant. And then, you know, he brought in the cruiserweights, of course, into WCW, and I think Rey Mysterio and Eddie and Jericho and Malenko, them guys for me are the most. When I think about WCW, I think of them, and I think of the cruiserweight division there because it was the best division I've ever seen. They were doing stuff that I'd never seen before in any other promotion, you know. And I watched Japan as well. I watched some Japan stuff.
I'd never watched Japan until like the last sort of like 7 or 8 years. I've never really watched in Japan before.
I watched Japan because I heard about this guy called Cactus Jack. And you have to watch Cactus Jack, and there's a Leatherface and there's a Freddy Krueger as well.
Yeah.
And they said, watch it, there's a Leatherface out there, and he's got like a chainsaw and a leather mask and everything. I said, well, like in Texas Chainsaw. Yeah, you must watch it. And someone lent me a tape, and I was like, all right, then I watched it. And I thought, it's crazy. And then Mick Foley came on and Terry Funk, and I was like, these guys are amazing. I want to be like them. And that's why I fell in love with
Foley.
Mick Foley, just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the WCW, the only matches I can think of that stand out as being memorable are them matches. And I mean, you know, they make a star then out of someone like Goldberg. And no disrespect to Goldberg, you know, I think what he's done is you know, and he'll always be a legend. But he was the right man at the right time. You know.
But for Goldberg, I mean, but he was. I think
I was never a Goldberg fan.
No, Goldberg's pure product.
Oh, totally, 100%. But I mean, it's when WCW were pushing that, they were pushing product. They weren't pushing talent. They were pushing product.
Yes, and that's what I mean by the difference. That's what I'm trying to say. For me, when I watched it, it was WCW was pure product. Like the whole NWO thing was just over my head. Like I was just not interested.
Oh, I got to disagree with you though. The 1994 it was, wasn't it? It was the Bash of the Beach. Was it 94 or 95?
94.
94. Well, okay. That angle was probably one of the most wow, shocking moments in wrestling history. Okay? Like it or not.
Are you talking about the instruction of NWO?
Yeah.
No, that's NWO is, when was the click? The curtain call was 95. 95.
Okay, so
it's 95.
Bash the Beach 95 or 96.
95.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, the fact that, like, you turn Hogan heel, and this is, you know, at this stage, it was just, wow. It was a moment where wrestling fans, and that's the thing, is that, you know, that wrestling fans in America take it so seriously as well.
Yeah.
You know, and that moment was WCW gold.
And I think you have to, maybe
people tuned in to find out what was going on from then on in.
I think you're right. You have to have been there in the moment.
Oh yeah.
Living in the moment, you would have said, "My God, I can't believe this has happened."
Yeah, it's like Undertaker.
The real American has become the baddie.
It's the same. It's the same moment as encapsulated with Lesnar beating Taker for the streak.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that moment where everyone just went, that didn't just happen.
Even Taker was like, that didn't just happen.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean. But then,
but
prior to that, it was exactly like that.
Yes,
and
that's true. Very true. Okay.
And that's what propelled. That's what took WCW from one level to the next level was that one pay-per-view made WCW.
Yeah. And then they rode off the coattails of that first sale.
Yeah, but I mean, people tuned into WCW to find out what was going to happen next. What, you know, these people are out of control, you know, and they rule to themselves. People actually genuinely thought, because they would call them the outsiders, they genuinely thought they were still under contract of Vince McMahon. They came in and did an invasion angle.
Yeah.
And Bischoff worked there. He said, well, if you want to believe that, let's run with it. Let's run with it. And then they kept, to fuel that, they employed people who are ex-WWE to come in and work alongside the NWO.
And
like Virgil.
Yeah.
Came in.
There were some good hires, there were some bad hires, let's be honest.
And then Rick Rude turning up on taped Raw and then live.
I was going to say, on the same...
WCW on the same night.
So, yes, I get that. And being in the moment, I can see why it worked.
Yeah.
But my point being is, it works in the moment. But for me, and again, see what you think, when I go back and watch Attitude Era, and let's say from 95 to 2000 WWF, whether I watch a match or a vignette or a promo or whatever, there's an intensity and a... I don't know, like I said, they're pushing talent, that there's a talent there where you can tell that they've been told, go out and do this, but you make it up as you go along. Hence we get things like Austin 316 and, you know, that I can still watch. I can watch it now and go, that's good, that is, and I love it, and it still entertains me. But when I watch the WCW stuff, there's I almost want to say like a plasticky sheen to it that hasn't aged, where you do feel like it's product. Now I will say there's a distinction. I will testify that the cruiserweight stuff and the people just below the main eventers, I can watch all that, but that main event, that stuff, the headliner stuff that was carrying the brand, just doesn't work for me anymore. Just I don't know why. It just doesn't work for me.
But it was chaos as well. It was chaos.
It feels it.
You know, and it just seemed like everything was out of control, and it just took WCW from a family product to being a kind of like what the hell is this kind of thing, you know, almost swole then, or plume de flume, what's going on here, you know, and people, the fans hooked into that, because it was something. What else was there out there that had that kind of chaos to it? There was
let's talk about the other one then. That had the chaos to it. Now it's time to get extreme. What was your exposure of ECW like? Did you hear about it in the 90s, or was it something you came across later on?
No, I did hear about it in the 90s, but I didn't quite get it at first. I thought, what is it? Is it backyard? Is it, you know, is it amateur wrestling? What is it? You know, I didn't really get it until I think it was Guilty as Charged.
Right.
Was the pay-per-view that they did. I'm not sure if it was Guilty as Charged or... It was their first pay-per-view they did. And it was... Terry Funk was on there, and he got wrapped up in barbed wire to the extent that he had to be cut out of it. And I thought, I like this shit. This is good shit. And then I kind of got hooked on it as much as I can. But to get it over here was really hard.
Yeah.
You know, it was more on sort of like cable network across there than it was across here, and you could only get like bootleg tapes and stuff like that. So whenever I could get them, like the TV shows, I would. And sometimes they would be like a camcorder job. Some of the ECW shows, I still got to this day. I've still got all of my tapes from them days. Some of the shows are just filmed from one camera,
shaky cam.
And then they released them, and they used to trade tapes with my tape traders that I used to go to get wrestling and some Japanese stuff.
I would say the tape trading was big in the 90s.
Oh yeah,
really.
I was tape trading. Yeah, totally. I mean, I was buying them off anyone I can, and you know, getting them everywhere. And eBay was about, of course. You know,
only just really, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you could still buy tapes off there, you know, and then you buy a tape off there, or you go to boot sales, and people would sell them at boot sales.
I have to admit, I didn't know much about it, but tape trading, it's weird. I mean, like, tape trading was big. I mean, it wasn't. I would say that tape trading is one of those things that it's. I sort of wish I missed tape trading. I'm too young to have really benefited from tape trading, because by the time I got old enough to things, we had the internet.
Yeah, all right.
Granted, no. But my point being is that
there's an ageist thing going on here.
No. There's a. Whenever I hear about people that talk about tape trading, and this isn't just for the wrestling industry or for wrestling, for films, what we talked about during Halloween was, the video nasties and other.
I traded them as well.
Exactly, and this whole thing of tape trading at conventions or at boot sales or whatever was a real thing, that like there was a legitimate underground, and you could be a part of like that underground.
I remember
but you can't really anymore, because
I had to go to Cardiff, to an alleyway in Cardiff, to buy.
To lose your virginity?
No. To buy. No, that was on Carlisle Mountain. Another story altogether. Anyway, to buy a tape of King of the Deathmatch, and the guy had to sell it to me in an alleyway. It's crazy.
This is it, and I think
this is so bloodthirsty. I'll never be released in this country.
Well, but it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I think that's it was a bit more. There was an edge to it, which is the point.
Yeah, totally.
And
totally.
When you look back with it, I have to look back at it through history, and there is that thing of like, I wish I could have been a part of that scene, because I think it would have been amazing. Because I didn't know about ECW until I because I was a bit soft in the head, I think. Really, I mean, I just assumed there was WWF and I knew about WCW, but I was like, oh, that's it. I didn't even know it. I knew there was World of Sport, but that had gone in '89. So for me, I was like, oh, there's only 2 wrestling promotions in the world. Didn't know about Japan. Didn't know about the European circuit. Didn't know about anything else in America. I was like, there's WWF and there's WCW. And then obviously, as you get into it, and when I actually started wrestling, the more I learnt about Mick Foley in particular, and you start watching his videos, and I watched Beyond the Mat, and I'm like, my God, like there's so much more than this well-budgeted, polished product. That's pumped out.
It was raw. It was absolutely raw.
Oh. I don't want Vince turning up. I don't want to get a letter from Vince.
Well, it was
edgy. It was extreme.
Oh, it was just amazing. I mean, it was kind of in your face. It was in your face entertainment. You had people coming out to rings.
It was more than in your house. It was in your face.
That's right. Yeah, and I mean, you had people come to rings with cigarettes and drinking alcohol and flicking the finger and effing and jeffing. And not giving a crap. On bloods more or less every match. It was just. What the hell is this? This is just like, is this legal?
So do you think, I sort of know the answer, but do you think ECW had an impact on the booking and the way the promotion went, both WCW and WWF?
Oh, totally, because I think WWF wanted to be somewhere in between WCW and ECW. Because ECW was working as it was the third promotion. Even though people don't think it was, it bloody was. It was a huge following for for ECW. And,
so they wanted to be like the well-budgeted.
Yeah, they wanted to be the midway between the two.
Yeah.
They wanted to be the midway between the two, and with lots more money and a lot more polished product. And that's introducing the Hardcore Championship. Which was no accident.
No, that's good. But I'd forgotten all about the Hardcore.
Yeah. I mean, totally legitimate title. Okay, fair enough. When Crash Holly got a bit silly.
The 24/7 rule.
24/7 rule.
That was amazing.
Which was made. I think the 24/7 rule was made by Mick Foley
as commissioner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Commissioner.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember that. Yeah, the 24/7 rule. I mean, that did get silly when he was.
Especially in the play pit.
Yeah.
And he was like something like 24-time Hardcore champion. It was like the Jericho Championship all over again, wasn't it?
Okay, so we can see that there was a direct. I mean, again, you see there are certain workers that come up through ECW. Stone Cold was only really there as a bit of a drop in after a WCW run, but you can see it's the birth of the Stone Cold character. So without ECW, I don't know if you'd have the Stone Cold we get.
No, Stone Cold was allowed to be himself.
Yeah, and vent some anger, I think.
But,
like you say,
under the guidance of, again, you know, it was under the guidance of a guy who many hated for lots of reasons, but now is revered as one of the greatest minds in the industry. It's Paul Heyman, and I mean the guy was a twisted genius. He knew what worked and what didn't work. The similarities here, because the wrestlers there didn't understand where he was coming from. Just went, all right, Paul, all right, let's just do what you say. And then afterwards, it turns out the way it is. So it just goes to show, see, they are some...
I think the thing is, like you say, because ECW really got going, I think, like 94, became Extreme in 94, I think.
Well, WrestlePalooza 98 was the biggest. I'm not sure.
I'm going to Google it.
I think I'd say 96. I'm going to say 96. I'm going to say 96. For argument's sake.
Here's us. This is great radio.
Well, we can edit this bit out, surely.
So ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, Eastern Championship Wrestling from 92 to 94.
Yeah.
Extreme Championship Wrestling 94.
Well, fuck you.
Yeah. So 94 was when it became Extreme Championship Wrestling. So, but when you look at that, then, because Raw was broadcast in 93, but was still very much, although they call it Raw,
Panto.
It was Panto.
Yeah.
It was still very, very safe. It was still
you
very,
said the dog, the clowns.
Yeah, it was live, and it was probably, you can see incrementally it was edging towards what it was going to be, but it was still safe. WCW was actually at that point being booked, and I saw this in my research, it was being booked by Dusty Rhodes and Ole Anderson. So you were still getting, Lady Elizabeth and Randy Savage doing something, the same thing they would have done in 88.
Yeah, they were just repeating the same things
worked
again.
But this heavy metal, grunge, teenage audience that was like having lank, long hair and denim jackets with metal, heavy metal band badges or whatever, wasn't watching this anymore. That's what I was saying before, is they didn't catch up the times, and ECW caught onto that. That's what Paulie. That's what Paulie could do. He could sort of tell what the pulse of the those kids that liked Hogan in '84 had grown up, and they wanted something different, and he knew it. And you're right. He was a twisted genius. The guy was just so in touch with what people wanted.
Still is. He's still brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And and I think ECW is ECW the way it was, and the guys of Paul Heyman was amazing, just absolutely amazing product, and that's kind of like that symbolised. I mean, that was, without ECW there would have been an Attitude Era, in my opinion.
No, I'd agree. I'd totally agree. Yeah, I agree.
That Vince just copied ECW and diluted it somewhat.
Yeah, kept it a little safer, but only just. I mean, obviously I didn't see Raw week on week in the 90s, but some of the things
it became PG-13.
Yes, rather than PG.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think really when you look at the 90s, or the second half of the 90s, let's say from like 94 onwards, there are certain factors, like if things had been level, if you hadn't have had ECW, if you hadn't have had WCW, I still stand by the fact I think WWF would have died out by, or would have been really lagging by the end of the
Vince McMahon says, doesn't he himself, if he didn't do the Attitude Era or hadn't been successful, they would have gone bankrupt.
I think so. I can totally believe it. I think him growing into a monopoly as he did, again, like Vince screwed Vince. I think he built it to an era where like Vince thrived on the competition. The reason it became so good in the 80s was because Vince was all gung-ho to make it the biggest promotion it could be. And then by like 88, 89, when he got there, I think it plateaued.
When he was doing four pay-per-views a year and went for 12.
Yeah. And now they're doing something ridiculous. I don't know, God knows what they're doing now.
I think they're doing roughly about 12 a year now.
Should so drop that. Like go back to, I think should do.
I don't know. I think that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah,
but still, I mean, I think that it shows the boost in the 90s, that turn in business where you go from 4 pay-per-views a year to 12.
Yeah.
That's quite something. And then WCW followed up suit and said, okay, you're doing 12, we're going to do 12.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then we're going to do one that's completely NWO oriented, called Sold Out, which bombed. Absolutely bombed. Because no one wanted to see their own pay-per-view of NWO.
Well, like I say, by the end of the 98, 99, ECW was in real financial trouble. Like, no one was getting paid.
WCW.
So ECW as well.
Yeah.
ECW was in the shitter.
Yeah.
All the big guys, all the talent from ECW had been picked up. So all the guys that had come through ECW were now working probably for the other two in some capacity. I mean, Jericho started did a stint at ECW, and
yeah, he did. Yeah,
Eddie
they were trying to do a cross promotional thing with.
They did a
WWE.
cross promotional thing there for a short time,
and it didn't work out, did it? They had a bit of
fell a bit flat. Yeah.
Well, it worked out from a fan perspective, but I think behind the scenes it just
no one wanted to concede that the other had won or anything like that. It was a bit, I think it was poorly thought out on, when it came to planning. But let's say, so in WCW was busting at the seams, was paying ridiculous amounts of money, but fans were starting to walk away because they were just sick of seeing.
The wrestlers didn't care. The wrestlers in WCW were there for the money. They weren't there for anything else.
It became
an easy payday.
It became the Hogan Nash show, didn't it? And that was it.
Well, Hogan and Hogan's friends.
Yeah, including what I'd never heard of before until doing the research for this was the finger poke of doom.
Oh, the one with Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash pokes Hogan in the chest. No, sorry, Hogan pokes Nash in the chest, and he lies down for him to give him the title. And apparently, that was it. Like everywhere I read, everyone was like, "That was it. That was the turning point." Where everyone was like, "Ugh, this again," and yeah. Although they tried desperate things. Going back to films, then they said they tried desperate things to really push the WCW brand. Including putting the heavyweight title or the world title on David Arquette.
That was a Vince Russo thing.
It was but when he was trying to promote the WCW funded film Ready to Rumble,
yeah.
So it's David Arquette and Scott Kahn and Oliver Platt as the King.
Which was Jerry Lawler, basically.
It's a Jerry Lawler rip. It's a piss take of Jerry Lawler.
Yeah, totally.
Which even when I watched it, I was like, this seems really familiar. It's not a bad film. It's quite hard to get hold of.
I've got it somewhere.
I think I used to have it on DVD. I've probably got rid of it now, but it's quite hard to get hold of these days. But it's got some interesting. It's got a really interesting sort of dynamic to it because the film is basically that Oliver Platt, having not worked out at all clearly, is a top line wrestler.
It's again Lawler.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. He's playing
Lawler.
Jerry Lawler.
Yeah.
He's playing Jerry Lawler, and these two, he's going to retire or whatever, and then David Arquette and Scott Kahn go on the road to try and bring him back. Yeah. And along the way, they meet with all the WCW superstars, and they end up in a title match against the baddies. And the baddies in the film are Diamond Dallas Page, the amazing DDP, and then I just remember it. So I'm trying to remember who else was in it. There's a load of others. Stock heel thingies, and they basically it's a Hell in a Cell tower match. Like it's basically like a big tower of cells, but they give away
Tower of Doom. They call it
Tower of Doom. That's it. And there's several moments in it where during the match they do things where I know that there was smarks at this point, so the internet had started and people knew that it was at work and all this other stuff. But in the film, they have them calling spots in the ring. But he's like, "All right, baby, let's go for hip toss, armbar, da da da." And I was like, "Wow, they've got this in a film that's being promoted by a wrestling promotion that wants you to watch this film and then go watch a wrestling show." Okay, that seemed a little bit odd to me.
Yeah, I agree.
But there's another bit where Scott Kahn blows. It's in the old gimmick of blowing dust or powder into the wrestler's face.
Yeah.
Blows it to Diamond Dallas Page. Yeah, and it's a great gimmick. It's a great spot. Blows it to Diamond Dallas Page. He's like, "That never works." No, I didn't know this. But after the film was promoted, WCW then used that as a distraction point in a match after.
No way.
Seriously.
Wow.
So it was built into a storyline.
It says it never works, and then they
yeah.
put her into it. Oh my god.
So, and then, but, it has
But they used the Tower of Doom for a pay-per-view.
They did.
Yeah.
And the only bit in that film that's really, really good is Oliver Platt is about to get all beaten up, and it stops being a work and becomes a real shoot when Goldberg, Sting, and I forget who else, comes to the ring to save the day and get, you know, Jerry Oliver Platt, the King, the belt. It's a very odd film. It's a very bizarre film
But strangely entertaining.
But it is very strange and entertaining.
There was another film called Bad Boys, which was
not the Will Smith film.
No.
There's No Holds Barred with
Yeah, I've got that.
Hogan and Tiny Lister.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doogie, which is a good film actually. That's worth the see.
Yeah, Zeus and Rip.
That's it, Zeus. Yeah, Tiny Lister became a Zeus.
But actually then transpired into again. See, you look at that, right? It's about real, you know, sort of like films reflecting into the wrestling world. Okay, so
Yeah.
you've got, like, for instance, in Shockwave, at WCW, had RoboCop turn up and they get Sting out of a cage.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, you have No Holds Barred, Zeus, Hogan.
Well, Zeus is the 80s. Zeus, No Holds Barred is like 88.
Oh yeah. No, but what I'm saying is that you got Zeus and Hogan, right?
Yeah.
Which is, and then WWE or WWF as it was, then decided to bring Zeus in to wrestling and use him as a character. But then fast forward to the 90s, WCW again is just rehashing that formula. David Arquette, Ready to Rumble.
Oh, it's the same thing.
Bring it in.
But the thing is, at least with No Holds Barred, the film plays it like a legit fight sort of thing. It's played like a legit fight. It's not. I'll go on better. All right.
Okay.
So in the 80s, and this is something like kayfabe, even up until like the early mid 90s, kayfabe was still a big thing. Like, you presented yourself as your character to the public, and you know, as much as you could, you didn't break character.
Yeah, you didn't travel together.
Exactly. Heels and faces travel separately.
You didn't acknowledge each other in airports or anything like that.
Exactly. You know, and you didn't divulge how the basically the magic was done, all this other stuff. Right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
kayfabe was solid. Let's go back in time to 1983. Actually, maybe not 80. No, it's 83. Yes, 83, 82. You've seen Rocky 3.
Oh, Thunderlips.
Thunderlips, the ultimate male.
Reminds me of an ex-girlfriend.
Slide anecdote, when I was John Bull, Mike, you actually referred to me as Thunderlips, the ultimate whale, in a match, and it caught on. It did, and it caught on as a chant. So
I can't remember that.
Yeah, the two big things you called me that caught on as a chant. One caught on bigger than the other was Big Gay Bear.
Big Gay Bear, I remember
which
that. Yeah.
Caught on across multiple shows. But you also called me Thunderlips, the ultimate whale, and it caught on at a show. But anyway.
Sweet creative genius.
Yeah, it was. Like, it was you and Paulie. In Rocky 3, it's Rocky versus Thunderlips, Hulk Hogan, in a charity match. And, Thunderlips comes in and basically beats up Rocky, suplexes him.
Yeah,
Backbreaker, right? Picks him up, throws him into the crowd, here we go, meatball! Bump, does it all. And at the end of the thing, he gets him in, it's like, time for a photograph. And then he's like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? He's like, oh, come on, this is just for the kids. And I'm like, this is 83. And they're acknowledging, or 82 even, and they're acknowledging that this is a work. I was stunned. When later on in life, like I say, when I go back and watch Rocky 3 now, that stuns me.
Yeah, totally.
Because
everyone was so kayfabe, wasn't it?
Because it was so solidly kayfabe in 82. Like, you've still got like really old school guys working then. And it was massively kayfabe. The villain in that story is Clubber Lang, the great Mr. T. Yeah. 2 years later, he appears at WrestleMania side by side with Hogan. In what they're trying to produce as a legit match against Roddy Piper and
Paul Orndorff.
And you start to think to yourself, like, I know that luckily there wasn't videotapes and stuff at that point, so you couldn't go back and look at it and stuff. But even then, you know, people and workers, there was that nudge that it's not real, you know. It's not real. It's amazing to me now that, like, when they started to really break kayfabe in the 90s and they acknowledged things like, well, Vince McMahon, yes, he was an announcer, but he actually owns WWE. And all these other things that they started to sort of do these meta stories and stuff about background politics. And people were like, really stunned by it.
Yeah, they broke down the third wall.
Yeah, but then when you start to... Fourth wall. But when you start to look at it, it was never that sort of like... There's things that sort of, you know, there's always been that sort of like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We sort of know it's a bit silly. You know, this man dressed as a Georgia prison guard. This guy dressed as a Mountie. This guy dressed as a clown. Aren't legit fighters. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The fact I believed it as a kid, I feel a bit of a pillock, to be perfectly honest.
But shows how good they were at their craft. But
Totally.
Just retracting, getting back to something I was saying earlier on, though, okay? The problem with 90s wrestling for me when WCW was concerned is that WCW just mirrored and copied literally everything there is to copy with regards to things that have gone before. So they just basically was repeating shit that had gone down before. And that's where it failed. ECW was making groundbreaking, new, innovative ways of hurting each other and making something look entertaining.
And they were bringing in Japanese wrestlers, Mexican wrestlers, European wrestlers.
Oh yeah, they were. They were bringing in people left, right, and centre. I mean, Ulf was in there. Ulf Herman was in there as part of the Italian, IBM.
Right. Anyway, so they were. ECW was doing a lot of good things.
And I think that's why the Attitude Era worked. The Attitude Era was giving us something completely new that we hadn't seen before. And you got to be honest. Look at the Attitude Era and look at ECW. Even though there was the similarities between the kind of stuff that they were trying to get across, the message they're trying to get across, they were still doing their unique stuff. They were still doing their own individual stuff. And that's what makes the Attitude Era great. Just absolutely wonderful, wonderful time of innovative writing, creativity, wrestling, character work, promo work. I mean, some of the greatest promos were cut, in there. I mean, there was great promos cut in ECW, but there were fabulous promos cut. I mean, The Rock, Stone Cold, even Mick Foley.
Foley did some amazing ones, some real meta ones as well. Like, it's, lifting the lid a bit. I mean, the three faces of Foley and all that kind of thing.
Dewey Foley as well. Kane Dewey.
Yeah.
Great promo.
Yeah.
That was ECW, obviously.
That was,
I mean,
but yeah. And you get some amazing matches. I mean,
Stone Cold Booker T.
Oh,
and I think of the Attitude
that's
Era.
in the Invasion era. That's the Invasion, but that's 2002. That is, but in the supermarket.
Supermarket, yeah. I keep thinking about that.
Well, that's a whole because it's Booker T on the run, isn't it? From Stone Cold.
Yeah.
They go to a funeral parlour. They go to the house in a car
He tries
park.
to be a statue.
Yeah, and then they end up in the supermarket and so. Brilliant! I love that segment. That's one of my favourite segments of all time. That is. It's silly, but it's so good. But from the Attitude Era, top of your head, like, list me a couple of things, standout moments that you always like. If I'd say Attitude Era or 90s wrestling, what springs to mind for you? What defines it for you?
Rock and Stone Cold. 100% Rock, Stone Cold. Mankind, Undertaker. To an extent as well. I mean, Hell in a Cell, King of the Ring. I mean, that's wow. Wow. Wasn't a big fan of DX at all. Didn't like the whole DX thing. It was a bit too. It was a bit too children playing naughty children sort of thing, or that sort of thing. Kurt Angle. I think Benoit, Jericho coming on to Raw, and entering Raw and being and interrupting The Rock.
How dare you, little jabroni, come on The Rock show and not even have the class to introduce yourself? What is your name?
I told you.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
He got you. That one.
The Rock says you talk about your Y2J plan. Well, The Rock has a little plan of his own, and it's called the KY Jelly Plan.
Oh, no.
Which...
You know what that is, JR? Yeah. You do? You don't use it to clean pipes, JR.
Which means The Rock is gonna lube his size 13 boot real good, turn that sumbitch sideways, and stick it straight up. You can do it.
You know, the first Universal Champion, all this kind of like the key guys.
That pay-per-view, is it no? I don't know.
It's Unforgiven.
Unforgiven. They do the champion. It's The Rock,
The
Jericho,
Rock and Stone Cold in
and
the same night.
Oh, it's amazing. That was a really... Rob Van Dam splits Stone Cold just under his lip, and he had to go to the hospital, get stitches, and then come back and fight Jericho.
Match, yeah.
That's a good pay-per-view, that is.
That was a great pay-per-view. I mean, that was the standard pay-per-views in the Attitude Era as well. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. You know, we've stepped up from, you know, we had matches, pigpen matches prior to that, you know, and stuff. And it's like with the Goodwins, you know, the Godwins. Was it Godwins?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and the Heavenly Bodies and things. And you're like, oh, come on, really?
Yeah.
The Body Donners. There was a Body Donners. Skipping. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, I think when I think about the Attitude Era, Stone Cold is forefront for me.
Hardcore Holly.
Hardcore Holly. Yeah. Jeez. You know the thing that I was watching, so I pulled out some of the old DVDs, and the sort of they do the warning at the start, like you know, these guys are professionals, don't do this at home, and they show the little snippets of people basically being injured, and there's that thing where Hardcore Holly, his back is split open.
That was on a Raw.
Yeah,
that was on a Raw show.
And I'm just watching it, going like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and that was gushing.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw the clip earlier on from Botchamania.
Yeah.
The one with Eddie and JBL. And I mean, I know that's a little later.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at
there's some legit.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at things that could have, when we look at injury-inducing things, they introduced Hell in a Cell, and you know, the first one with Taker, Shawn Michaels is a bloodbath.
Shawn Michaels
is a bloodbath.
Completely covered.
Pissing blood all over the place. It's a bloodbath.
Taker is well. Taker's busted out.
And I watched it there. Well. It's a great match. Like really,
good match.
And, you know, interesting finish with Kane and stuff. But the second Hell in a Cell, Mankind versus Taker, which then has Mankind thrown off the roof through the table and stuff.
Great spot. That was a great spot.
It's awesome. But even watching it now, you're like, how does he walk away from that? Like, because it ends then with him going through the ring. And granted, the ring was set up to do it.
No, you see the first...
No, the choke slam...
The choke slam was
through the roof.
Wasn't supposed to happen at all. That was not supposed to happen at all. The first one, off the top of the cage...
Yeah. Through the
table, was supposed to happen.
That was set up.
They were supposed to fight on the top of the cage and stuff like that. He was supposed to climb back up a cage and fight again on top of the cage. The cage was giving way as they were walking across before anything else happened anyway. When he choke slammed him, wasn't supposed to happen at all.
How does he walk away from that? Like, Jesus. I mean, obviously, it knocked him for 6.
He was out. He was knocked out legitimately. Yeah. He woke up, found a pair. Look, he said
a pair of trainers. It's Terry Funk. He's been choke slammed out of his trainers.
Tooth on up his nose.
Yeah.
As well, cut on his lip. Yeah, he's trying to stick his tongue through it so he can, because he's trying to feel it. And they think, oh look, he's smiling. So no, I was just trying to see what that hole was in my mouth. You know.
It's if you watch that image where he comes to the corner of the ring and he's doing that face, it's horrific.
Oh, totally.
Like, it's really quite chilly that you're like, he is messed up. But that stands to me as like the dedication these guys had at that era. So that always stands out to me. Other ones are like they said, just the craziness of Stone Cold. taking the Zamboni down to the ring and the beer truck, or...
Do you remember Kurt Angle in the milk truck?
Yes! That was amazing. Like, Kurt Angle has such a great sense of humour. All these things, like they said, the Austin Vince McMahon feud. You're right about DX. DX never really worked for me. Worked for me even less when they came back as sort of like middle-aged men. That really fell flat for me. But there was so much, like The Rock. The Rock became The Rock. Like, just like
from the Rocky Maivia.
Yeah. Just became the most electrifying. Yeah, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. And it just works so well. But there's so many others. Like I'd even say like Triple H, when after his injury returns. I mean, it's a bit later and stuff, but coming out to Motorhead and all that sort of stuff. It's just,
oh man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, the games music.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, wow.
And like you say, all those pay-per-views are just awesome. I mean, I suppose it still is Attitude Era, but of course Royal Rumble. Royal Rumble 2000? 2001? Whichever one's got the street fight between Mick Foley and Triple H.
Oh, it was Cactus. Yeah, he was Cactus, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That was a Hell in Cell.
No. Just a street fight. A street fight between Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, and Triple H. Now this is sort of, I think we're moving out of our territory now, so we're probably sort of, like I say, we've come to an end really, I think. But I want to talk about this because it has. Again, when I think about this era, sort of like, let's say Attitude Era sort of ends 2001, 2002-ish, so we're going a little bit out of the century, but there's a moment even now. There are three promos that when I watch them back, or three moments in WWE that when I watch them back still give me chills.
Right.
Like really go, whoo, and they really get me going. And this is the number one. This one. The other two are the Pillman's Got a Gun.
Yeah.
Which,
although it's a good angle.
Despite the acting and everything, that and it is terrible. Like, is just awesome.
That is legitimate. At his home.
Yeah.
It really was his home.
It's nuts.
It really was his wife.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. And you watch it, and I'm still like, this is nuts. Like, this is the birth of Austin, and it's nuts. Love it. The other one is, I watch it and I enjoy it because it's a little sillier, but I still really like it. Is Undertaker crucifying Stone Cold.
Yes, yeah.
It's nuts. It's so ridiculously over the top. But I watch it and I'm still like, this is badass. Like Undertaker as a druid.
But then they got that. They nicked that from ECW because ECW Raven. I think Raven was crucified.
Raven did, yeah. But it was awesome, and I can watch that.
Kurt Angle's at the show, and Kurt Angle walked out.
Yes.
Like, not being associated.
Yeah,
with
this is a bit much for me. But that promo is awesome. But the one that really always stands out to me is, to give you some context, Mick Foley had come back, he'd been working out and he'd got himself in a much better position. And he comes out and Triple H had beaten him up. And then the week before he has a match and he's in the Mankind garb, so he's got the shirt on, the tracky bottoms and the mask. And he has a match and he runs and he does a running knee into someone in the corner and all this other stuff goes on, right? And then the end of the match is interrupted by Triple H coming out and giving him a bit of a decking. Anyway, and then Triple H calls him out and they're doing the spot. I think they've got the fake. I think it's the one where they've got the. I can never remember. They've got the fake Mick Foley, and Mick Foley comes out dressed as Mankind.
We saw a vicious side of Mick Foley Monday night after being driven through the table
What
by
you get
Triple
off
H.
on, making fun of me? How much more do you want from me? First, you take away my job, then you bring this idiot out there and you take away my dignity. Then Monday night, in what should have been the greatest night of my life when I was reinstated on Raw is War, you take me and you ruin my shirt.
What?
And you ruin my face. And I'll be honest, when I stepped into that shower and I let the cold water run down on my head and I looked down at the blood as it swirled around that shower drain, I started thinking a little bit about what Mankind was. Now, Mankind is an entertaining son of a gun. Mankind is a pretty damn good author. Mankind is one tough SOB. And Mankind is one hell of a fighter. So it saddens me to say that after the beating you gave me on Monday night, one thing Mankind is not is ready to face you in a street fight at the Royal Rumble in Madison Square Garden.
He's not.
Because you are without a doubt the game. You are the best in the business right now. And as you said, well, Mankind in some ways is nothing more than a beaten up, pathetic fool. But I think the WWF fans deserve a substitute in that match.
Substitute? He's kicking it out?
What I'm going to do, Triple H, is I'm going to name him right now. As a matter of fact, I think you know the guy. And I think you know him pretty damn well. His name is Cactus Jack. And his first official act as part of the WWF is to kick your teeth all over the city of Chicago.
Cactus Jack is back!
And I think when you watch
yeah.
it, there's
He could cut a great promo.
and
Foley was.
yeah, and to be fair, Triple H sells it like like an absolute mother, because he's just like, oh shit, like this just got real. And even like
This
Mick Foley
is gonna
says,
hurt.
even on one of the DVDs, Mick Foley talks about it. He says it could have flopped, like you know, Triple H could have gone whatever, you're still Fat Foley, but it isn't. It's like no. For him, it was like, you're not lovable, silly Mankind who's done the "This Is Your Life" skit with The Rock,
Which is one of my favourites.
which is also awesome.
Yeah.
I'm now coming out as Cactus Jack, the guy who did all the death matches, the guy who's sort of like fallen through barbed wire, the guy who was set on fire. Like, I'm coming out serious. I'm coming out to kick your ass. And watching it, and I'm just like, it seriously, like, every time I watch it, makes my heart pound. It's such a good promo, and it leads up to one of possibly like the best street fight matches ever. Like, without a doubt, one of the best matches. Seriously, I would recommend that match to anybody, because there's true, despite it being like brutal and stuff, there's true psychology to that match.
I think of that time, it was probably the greatest one. I think again, Mick Foley going back much further in history, 2009, I think, which was Foley against Randy Orton.
That's a great match as well.
Which is probably, I'd say, well, Foley Edge as well.
Yeah, Foley. Yeah.
Foley Edge and Foley Foley
Orton.
Just
Mick Foley Randy Orton match is very reminiscent of the Foley triple.
Yes, I was going to say, yeah, it is
the Triple H one.
Yeah,
but yeah, they are excellent, excellent matches. I mean, I think that's the thing. Obviously, we talk about the legacy of the Attitude Era, the 90's wrestling. I mean, the legacy lived on. You get the Invasion Era, despite WCW being sold off and ECW also being purchased out by WWF, or WWE as it became. The legacy is strong. I mean, like, you know, the guys go on. The Rock, Jericho. Jericho's still working and still excellent.
yeah, he's still as good as he was.
You know,
yeah, absolutely. He's not lost the beat. Not
no.
lost the beat.
And The Rock will come back and do granted, he's gone off and become the most electrifying, the most well-paid actor of 2016.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, the highest paid actor, wasn't he?
Yeah. So the legacy of that is the legacy of the Attitude Era. It birthed stars.
I think it's more so than today. I think there's a lot of stars that are there today that are featuring main event, which will never be in the same league.
No.
There's people like Roman Reigns.
I don't even watch today. And
Roman Reigns is just terrible. Just terrible.
there's no one I see when you go back to, if you were to look at I'll tell you what, let's put it this way. If you were to look at 86, 96, 2006, 2016. Each of those periods, right, in 86, I would say you're starting to get the cross-media penetration of wrestling. Globally, like worldwide.
Yeah, so you're talking WrestleMania 3.
You've had the
Hogan
you've had, so you've got names like Hogan, Randy Savage,
Steamboat, Andre Jones,
Andre the Giant. I mean, Andre the Giant's been in.
he was in New Japan for a while.
Well, no, Princess Bride, and so cross media.
Yeah, well, that
so
comes later, yeah.
But they're starting to get into. You know, I mean, you know, Hogan's been in the bloody A-Team and appeared on TV shows. So you're getting cross promotion of like wrestlers. The headline guys in 86 are stars. Hogan's had a TV cartoon about him. Hogan and his wrestling buddies, or whatever it's called. Hogan Mysteries.
Rock and Wrestle.
That's it, Rock and Wrestle. Jeez, yeah. He'd met Scooby-Doo at this point. He's famous. 96, again, you've got the Attitude Era. You've got massive cross promotion.
Yes,
again.
Stone Cold, Mankind, Rock.
Even from WCW, you've got all these guys appearing in TV shows. You've got them appearing on like music videos. You've got them appearing on MTV. All this stuff, massive cross promotion. 2006, you've got like The Rock's already started to become a major actor. Stone Cold will always be, you know, one of the biggest stars. Undertaker's appeared in films, TV shows, and you know, I'm trying to think of it. It's dropping off a bit. But 2016. The only one I can really think of that regularly appears on different things is John Cena.
Yeah, he crops up now and again, doesn't he?
He crops up. He's had a couple of films. He's done a few other things. He was in that train wreck with Amy Schumer last year.
Yeah.
He's done bits and pieces where he's willing to do stuff. No one else.
Stepdad, he was in Stepdad.
Exactly, he's in Stepdad because he's like basically a musclier version of Mark Wahlberg. I've always thought that. But no one else. I mean, they did like, what was it? This John Cena was in The Marine.
The Marine, yeah.
And they did Marine 2, which was Randy Orton.
No,
that was he was in because so Cena did The Marine and 12 Rounds, which actually I'll tell you, 12 Rounds is actually not a bad film.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
It's a good film.
Okay,
I'd actually rate him in that. It's a pretty good action film.
Then
they did
Mr. Kennedy. And
Kennedy was The Marine 2.
No,
he was Behind Enemy Lines 3. But then, so there's
Ted DiBiase was in Behind Enemy Lines 4.
Right, so there's still been the Marine one, John Cena.
Marine 2 is The Miz.
Yeah. Then Marine 3 is
The Miz again.
No, it's DiBiase.
No. That's Behind Enemy Lines.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so you've got they're all over the place. These
because the Miz is still doing the
Marine.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
And then 12 Rounds 2 is Randy Orton.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So they have cropped up in like, but they're all of them. Kane did See No Evil.
1 and 2.
Two of the worst horror films I've ever seen.
Number 2 was awful. Number 1 was all right, though.
It's all right.
Number 1 was all right, but number 2 doesn't really explain
anything.
Because it's like, hang on, he dies in number 1, so what?
And then he comes back. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
And rubbish. So they do crop up, but all of those are WWE funded films. So they're
surprise.
Yeah. So
even Triple H.
Triple H's done a couple of films. I've never watched any of them. Oh, he's in Blade
the
Trinity.
Chaperone.
I've never seen it. I've seen Blade Trinity. He's in that, where he's got the little dog that's a vampire. But that's what I'm saying. Like now they're having to force this sort of cross promotion and try and get them out of there. Get these superstars out there because there is no one, as far as I can see, that has the charisma or the star power to really carry that promotion. They haven't got a replacement for The Rock or Stone Cold, or even if John Cena, touch wood, was to be struck down with a career-ending injury tomorrow.
You can touch wood. Bless him.
Well, seriously, I don't want the man to lose his job. But if he was to be hit down with a career-ending injury tomorrow, I don't know what they would do because I don't know what they've got.
Well, they've got. Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's no one springs to mind. I mean, they are building people up, but it's not the same.
But is it because they are actually suffering from what they could have suffered from in the early to mid 90s if WCW, ECW hadn't existed.
There's just a drought of character. There's a drought of character.
Yeah.
The WWF at the moment is fluctuating between, like in the Attitude Era, you knew exactly what it was about. It was about extreme storylines. It was about extreme characters. It was about trying to push the boundary as far as you could go to get to that mark, but not cross it. Whereas now, they don't know exactly what they want to be anymore. There's not enough character. They're not sure if they want to be a wrestling show or they want to be a entertainment show. They kind of fluctuate in between the two.
The last real star that I sort of like paid attention to was CM Punk.
Yeah, they need something like that again.
He was the last one I watched and was like, oh, I'd watch him. He was great.
Yeah.
Great worker. Great promoter.
And he screams Attitude Era.
Yeah, he does. 10 years. If he'd have been around 10 years or even 15 years earlier,
yeah,
I think he would have been awesome. He'd have been absolutely amazing.
Oh, he was. I mean, the limited time he was in WWE, astounding.
So
absolutely astounding.
So really, what I'm saying is that, like, so yeah, all right. So because there are workers in there now that I think I've heard are good workers. I haven't really watched
AJ Styles,
but probably. But a lot of them are personality, charisma vacuums.
You've got a few there. You've got people like Kevin Owens, who's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and he'll be a huge star. You got Jericho is still obviously, he's still around. Seth Rollins is a great technical wrestler. He's got the possibilities of being grand. And then you got AJ Styles, obviously, and then you got people like Bobby Roode, who's in NXT, and Austin Aries, which they will come up to WWE. But then you got Finn Balor, who has just got it. We know Finn. We've worked Finn.
Many years ago.
Yeah, but he's just got it. He's just got everything there needs to be that perfect package, and that's what they need. It needs to look at someone like Finn, and look at what he brings to the table, and that's what they need to shape everyone else up to be.
I think you're right though. I think the thing that seems to be missing is the Attitude Era was they knew what they wanted to achieve because they had an objective forced upon them. The objective was to survive, and to do it, you had to appeal to the audience, and they wanted extreme or whatever. You're right. I don't think they know what they want to be.
There's no competition. They're under no threat. That's why. Whereas for WCW, they had to survive, so they had to come up with things. Now they don't have to. They don't have to come up with anything. They can sail along.
Which is my point. So, but will that mean? But the thing is, I mean, just because they're mediocre doesn't mean people are going to stick around. People will go and find something else.
ROH or something like that.
Well, I'm talking about even they might just go off wrestling. They'll be like, "Oh, I've had enough of this. It's a duff product."
Well, that's what I've done. I've kind of gone off the.
Well, I did as well. I went off. You go find other things. But I'm wondering, like you say, that you can't just say there's good people in there. You need to have the right environment to foster that talent and that thing, because you're right. I mean, if there hadn't been the Attitude Era, if there hadn't been that level of competition, we would never have had The Rock. We would never have had Stone Cold Steve Austin. We would never have got any of that. You would have got
the ideal platform for them. To
you'd have been stuck with Rocky Maivia and the Ringmaster.
Yeah,
that's what would have happened without that level of competition, because they'd be like, tough. This is what the company line is. We haven't got to do it. We haven't got to do anything other than what you're told. Under that pressure, they were like,
your check, and that's it.
But under the pressure to actually survive, they were like, look, just do something. We need to do something. Go out and do something amazing, and miracles happened. I don't know. Nothing makes me want to watch wrestling today. I will go back and I will watch this stuff. And maybe it's because of my age, and I'm looking at the past through rose-tinted glasses, and there's an element of nostalgia. Probably. But I still go and watch films today. I will still go and watch TV today that is new, of things that I've always liked. But whenever I try and watch WWE, it just falls flat. It's just not for me anymore.
But then
I'm not the target audience.
We got to look at stuff like the Attitude Era, and then after the Attitude Era, that's what influenced us.
Yes,
in our characters,
we were spoiled.
Us in
our
development, and that's the thing. It's like we're.
Let's be completely honest right now. Then.
Yeah.
So, you and I, whenever we wrestled, really, we were emulating Mick Foley versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. And let's not kid ourselves.
Probably, yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't copy the matches or anything like
No.
that.
But
I mean,
the characters
I didn't
were
even do
still-
any of the moves at all.
No,
At all. You know,
but the characters were very influenced.
yeah, we were influenced by I mean, obviously, my entire my character is influenced by Mankind.
Yeah.
You know, it's a combination of Mankind and a Cactus Jack.
Mm.
Really, that's my thing. No, nothing of Dude Love.
No, Cactus Kind.
Cactus Kind.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, but that was my influence. That was what, you know, I drew from that. And you look at when that was, you know, Cactus Jack and Mankind. You're talking Attitude Era, you know.
Yeah.
Cactus Jack a little bit prior to that, but still, you know, I mean, you still got that.
But, yeah, that intensity, that gimmick.
Yeah, and I mean that says something, isn't it? And that's influenced the entire career. You know, I mean, it's just like, wow. It was a great era for influence, and that's why when we look at wrestling now, we don't look at it as favorably, because one, we're detached from it because we're not in it anymore,
No, it's true.
and secondly is that, you know, it's not the same now because we don't have that connection. You know, if we were wrestling, I'm sure the people wrestling out there on the British promotions, you know, the Indies promotions at the moment, are probably looking at people like Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns and stuff, and probably drawing the same things from them as we did in the Attitude Era. But I, from a personal perspective, I'm someone who can sit outside of the fringe of wrestling and look at it from a creative standpoint, from a theatrical standpoint. I do look at the product and I think this is quite dull.
Yes, I agree.
It does not. It doesn't want me to tune in to see what's going to happen next. The only thing makes me want to watch Raw is Mick Foley is on there as the general manager.
Yes.
You know, and the only thing that makes me watch Raw apart from that is Jericho.
Yes.
And Kevin Owens.
This is what I would say is, though, in this day and age, we are going through. They say that we're going through the golden age of television. Okay, so we're going through. We've got amazing shows like we've had Breaking Bad. You've got Walking Dead. You've got Game of Thrones. You know, and now Westworld, and everyone's going on, going mad about that. And you're getting all the superhero shows: The Flash, Arrow, Agents of Shield. I don't know, Supergirl. We've got some really amazing things. The reason they have to be good is because of the competition. Because there's so much good content now that, like, you've got to be good, you've got to be shocking in order to win over the competition. If you want an hour of my time, in fact, no, let's say, if you want 12 hours of my time for me to sit through a TV show, you've got to be hooking me in.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you follow The Walking Dead. I'm a little bit behind on it.
I love it.
But obviously, what's recently happened with the premiere of season 7, I'm not going to do any spoilers here, but obviously, at the end of season 6 and the start of season 7, they've introduced Negan and everything that's happened. That, to me, screamed Attitude Era. It was the ECW effect of, do you know what we're going to do? Firstly, I'm going to leave you on tenterhooks, and then I'm going to basically make you cry, and you're going to be begging for more.
Yeah.
And Game of Thrones does it regularly.
Oh yeah, totally.
That thing of like shock visuals but good storytelling.
Yeah, totally.
And that hooks you in, because the moment you get there's a program called Sleepy Hollow.
Yes, I know of it.
Which is on Amazon Prime. I'm watching it on Amazon Prime. First 2 seasons were pretty good. I got about 4 or 5 episodes into season 3, and I was like, I could be watching something 100 times better than this. It just got flat. So I just stopped watching it because there are much better things. It's the same with films at the moment. I think Marvel has reached a bit of a plateau, but it's going to have to up its game because DC are doing its thing. Star Wars is coming up. We're going to go into we're going to go into a competition era where there's only so much money I can spend on going to see a film. So if you want me in to see that film, you better be making worth my while.
But wrestling doesn't have that.
No. So we are going through like an attitude era for those things where they're trying to push the boundaries. It's all secular, though, isn't it? So could we get another attitude era?
I think we got like Lucha Underground creeping up very, very fast through the ranks, and I think that again, it's a very different product. You're not talking about a wrestling show. You're talking about a soap opera. You know, a wrestling soap opera. That's what Lucha Underground is, and it makes no mistake about it. The entire seasons are based on storylines.
So does it in seasons?
Yeah,
I've never seen it. I've heard of it. But
Lucha Underground starts in season 1. And then everything in season 1 you don't have to worry about for season 2, because season 2 is kind of like an extra sketch type thing. and people die. People die in it's bizarre. It's a wrestling show where people die.
Well,
and characters die and get killed off and things like this. It's
I really want to see it. I've heard things about it.
It's brilliant. It is really, really good.
I'm going to find it on the
And yes,
online.
it looks low. It looks kind of low budget,
Rinky-dink,
and some of the acting is a little bit hammy. And some of the people in there are actors, and some of them are wrestlers. But the fact is that it's brilliant. It's captivating because you're like
something different.
Totally.
Because there was a massive thing like TNA Impact was going to be the big competitor, and somehow they've become.
It got lost. It didn't know what it was going to be.
Somehow it's become a steaming car crash.
They introduced Hogan and Bischoff.
Exactly. They made the WCW mistake of relying on, this is a known product. People will want to come and see it, and they don't give a shit anymore.
No.
Unless it's Hogan humping his mate's wife, then no one cares.
Bubba loves Sponge's wife.
Yeah.
Well, no.
What you gonna do, mother?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. I don't.
If Trump's going to be president, I want Hogan as this sort of like
Hogan should be president.
No. I want if Trump's president, Hogan needs to be what do they call him, the defense minister of defense or whatever they call him, secretary of defense. Secretary of defense. Then he can just sort of like when the Middle East is sort of
what you going to do
Yeah.
when the largest nuclear arms in the world come crashing down on you?
22 4-inch. Yeah.
22-foot warheads.
Well, the thing is, whenever one of these ISIS guys releases one of their videos when they're sat in a cave or in whatever, I want Hogan then to compete backwards. Wheel out Mean Gene.
With me at this time, the heavyweight champion of the world, Hulk Hogan, readying for a title defense tonight against Hercules. And of course, Hulk, it happens on your own home turf here in Southern California.
And thank God, Mean Gene, I got my pump back, man. The pythons are ready, the largest arms in the world. And I'm glad they are because I checked this dude Hercules out, man. He's got the body of a god. He even looks like the real Hercules, and he's definitely stronger, man. But I checked the dude out even farther. He could have been a Greek god. He could have been an immortal. And you know something, Mean Gene? Since he's guided by Bobby the Weasel Heenan, I've trained for the dude like he was an immortal brother. I've been hanging out in the Garden of Eden with my main squeeze Eve. I dove 20,000 leagues under the sea, 40 nights and 40 days. I hung and bung on the Titanic. And Hercules, this is where the power lies.
Just the point that I wanted to make.
See, I still think Hulk Hogan would draw. Okay, I think Hulk Hogan.
He does draw. He'll be back in the WWE
of course
before he's at Doom.
Yeah, he got sacked for being a racist for a comment he made stupidly in private.
Look, the thing is, and I'm not going to defend him because he is personally, I think he's a bit of a prick.
Okay.
But he is a draw and he's a good worker and he knows how to work a crowd. And I will never ever, nothing he can do will tarnish the amount of work. The amount of work he put into entertaining people for 30 years plus.
Totally.
And I will say the same about others. That their personal lives aside, they have given blood, sweat and tears to perform for people. Benoit is another example.
I think you can't condone what Benoit did, or allegedly did.
I don't think there's any alleged about it. I think it was pretty clear cut.
I'm still on the fence. I'm still on the fence. Is
this one of those conspiracy theories?
I just don't.
Back and to the left.
I just think there's too many things.
I don't know enough. I don't know enough about it.
I've looked at this so much. There's too many things that you look at and you just go, makes no sense.
The
entire thing does make sense, but
life doesn't always make sense.
No,
but I know what you mean. But you're right.
I don't want to believe it, and I still, even all these years on, even though I put a cripple across space,
within days.
It was the same day.
Yeah,
it was the same day. We did a show on the same day,
and you put me in. Was it me or someone else?
Oh, it was you.
Yeah, a cripple across space.
A cripple across space on that day.
But the point is, like I say, there are others as well that have done things in their personal lives that. I mean, Kurt Angle's another example. He's made all kinds of mistakes.
He was a drug addict.
Eddie Guerrero made enough mistakes, but always, you cannot. I will never hear a bad word said about the amount of effort some of these guys put into and the sacrifices they've made to perform. So really, I think we should start looking to wrap this up. But so really, what we're saying is that the Attitude Era for us is our wrestling period.
Yeah. And I think it's the Dream Warriors of wrestling.
It's that perfect combination.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I mean, we might be biased in the fact that because of the way it influenced our lives. But when you look back on historically at wrestling, the Attitude Era is the era that people are going to be talking about many years to come. Yeah,
Yes.
they'll talk about Hogan.
Yeah.
But they're not going to remember the 80s wrestling. They're not going to remember any of that. Because nothing there was remarkable that set precedents, you know. And
No.
you got a few moments like Hogan,
Andre.
But you're not really going to have the same impact of like, you know, the excitement that the 90s Attitude Era had.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And even to this day, even wrestlers today still talk about when these things happen, you know, and the fact that you can have some star from the Attitude Era turn up on Raw or SmackDown, and the crowd will pop hugely for them.
Oh God, I mean, like, I know they've only recently left, but you know, if Stone Cold was to walk down that ramp, if that glass was to shatter, Stone Cold was to walk down that ramp on Raw next week, unannounced, that crowd would erupt.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
Same with
absolute erupt.
Same with The Rock.
Same with The Rock.
Rock just drifts in, wins the championship.
Yeah.
Drifts out.
Drifts in, pins someone. I've got a match. I've got a film coming out next week.
Yeah, so everyone watch it.
Fast 8 is coming out next
everyone
week.
goes, yeah,
all right.
Oh, we'll watch it. We love you, Rock.
So I saw an interview with Vin Diesel, and he was talking about the popularity of the Fast and the Furious franchise, and he was sort of basically bigging himself up and saying, "Oh yeah, well we've built this franchise, and it started out as this, and it's become this, and people love it." And I was thinking, do you know when it became really good?
When the
Rock joined in.
Yeah.
Do you know who came to see your films?
Fans
All of the
Rock.
Rock's fans. That's, I think, like, there's the people that wanted to see it, and then there's the people that wanted to see The Rock. And I think it's the same. He's a massive draw. He really is. And the same, like, you know, there's others I think there are others that I think have had their day, and if Ric Flair was to walk down that same ramp today, you'd get some woos and you'd get a bit of a pop, but
not the same pop.
Not
you
the
get
same
with the
pop.
Austins and the Rocks.
and I think you could still do it 10 years from now. I think they'd still get the same thing.
It's an era that will never be duplicated.
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
I would love them to try. I'd love them to have that popularity in that again. I'd love to see it.
It'd be amazing. But they'll find something else. There'll be something, 20 years from now, two people, one fat one handsome one, will be sitting on their couch.
Don't do yourself now. You're not that fat.
talking about an era in wrestling, which won't be the Attitude Era, but it will be an era of greatness.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know what that's going to be, and I'm eager to see it. And I hope they succeed. I hope, I'm hoping my kids are going to be talking to their kids about wrestling and stuff like that.
We are going to wrap up very, very soon. But one thing I will say is, one of the things I think that is a legacy of the Attitude Era and ECW and Extreme was
Mad Mike.
No. We've mentioned that basically, you're basically £100 away from being Mick Foley.
Yeah, I am.
Is UFC. I would actually say that as the WWF product became more family friendly, I think there's been the popularity in actual cage fighting, and I think a lot of the people that enjoy the Attitude Era and the Extreme ECW wrestling just shifted over to basically real cage fighting.
Yeah. Haven't seen a lot of KFC.
A lot of yeah.
Stick them two chickens in that cage and see what happens.
Colonel Sanders would have been. To be fair, Colonel Sanders is probably a gimmick that was considered in 1988.
Oh, probably. Everywhere everything wasn't it? The chicken farm.
Colonel Sanders versus Sergeant Slaughter.
That'd be brilliant. I'd do that.
Ronald
McDonald versus Colonel Sanders
in a chicken coop match.
But it's UFC. I'm not seeing a lot of UFC because
it's interesting.
I like because it's
you like the theatrics.
I like the theatrics. I like the storytelling.
I agree. No, I'm with you 100%.
UFC is just let's rip each other's face off. Let's just hit each other as hard as we can.
But I will say that I agree. I love the theatrics. I love the storytelling. As I've said, I love the vignettes and the promos and stuff. And and I have watched quite a bit of UFC and stuff, and the athletes are like double hard bastards. I wouldn't mess with any of them. But you're right. There's so little theatrics involved that I do get like, ugh. It's a bit like boxing. I've never really, with the Rocky films, if they were to just show a boxing match, I'd get really bored. If it didn't have the sort of like, you know, the music that went with it, and all the editing, it'd be dull. But yeah, I just think that's something I think people probably have moved on to.
I want to see a show. That's
exactly.
What I want to see a show.
It is a show. Yeah.
You know.
Okay. Right. I think we've done.
Well, it's
90s wrestling
to death.
Yeah, really have. But I've really enjoyed talking about this, actually.
It's been fun, hasn't it? It's been easy. It's been a flow off the tongue kind of like show.
It's all in there.
Yeah, I know. It's got all them chair shots I took as well. It's just amazing that everything's still there. But it's kind of strange though. I mean, that's the other thing. Is the fact of like one thing I will mention before we end, if that's all right with you, which I think is something that we've missed completely. The Attitude stars that we talked about, like the Stone Colds, like the Rocks, like the Mankinds, you know, these are all people who have had life-changing injuries because of that era as well.
Oh God, yeah.
And you know, Mick Foley with his chair shots and his concussions, Chris Benoit with his concussions that he received.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Stone Cold broken
neck, his knees are all shot. You know, Kurt Angle broke his neck in wrestling matches and carried on wrestling.
Yeah,
crazy ass. You know.
Taz broke his neck, walked to hospital.
Yeah. You know, and I mean, this says everything about the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
You know, and it says that how legit it all was and what they did to actually entertain us during that era, and they still feel the prices of it today. When I was speaking to Mick Foley at at Warwick, and I was saying to him, I said, "Well, what's your one regret?" Or I said something along the lines about regret about, you know, the time in wrestling. And he goes, "The fact that I can't bend down to tie up my own shoe."
Yeah.
So I was like, what? Really? Yeah. And he's like, "No, I can't." I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah. His body is wreckage. Well, even then it was a wreckage. I mean, if you get his biography, and that's what I will say, that's something I will say, you're right, is there are so many, we've touched on so many things, we've covered a very wide topic, but there are so many really, really good books to go out and check out. I mean, there's so many documentaries as well. The WWE, you've got the WWE network.
Great network. It's great.
I haven't got it, but I've heard really good things.
Oh,
but,
you should invest.
But I think one of my favourite books is Foley is Good. Have a nice day. The first Foley book.
Well, they're all good. All the Foley books are.
All the Foley books are really good. But that's the first one's my favourite, and I've
Have
read
a Nice
it multiple times.
Foley is good. And the
Hardcore Diaries.
Hardcore Diaries is not as good as the other ones.
No,
that's pretty good. And the Countdown to Lockdown is just it's just don't bother.
Yeah, but the other ones I would recommend, if you're going to go back and read them, the ones I'll list off quick 5 I would really recommend.
Jericho.
I was going to say Jericho's first one.
Totally. Jericho is probably sorry, Mick, but Jericho's is the best book I've read.
Yeah, I forgot it's called now. It was Lionheart.
Into the Lion's Den.
Into the Lion's Den, the first one is amazing.
Den, Spandex, My Life in Spandex.
Yeah.
And then it's the Best in the World. I don't know, or I have no idea.
Yeah.
But not that I'm a Jericho fan.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a Jericho.
I have to admit, I haven't read the other ones. I've only read the first one.
Oh man,
but,
really?
No, yeah. But I would recommend that first one.
They?
I would recommend that first one.
Have you got the other two?
No, I haven't.
Right, I'll lend you.
Okay. So I would say that one. I would say Mick Foley's first one. If you're going to read just 5, Jericho's first one. Yeah. Mick Foley's first one.
William Regal.
William Regal's. Walking the Golden Mile. I've got a signed copy of that somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah. Bret Hart's.
Bret Hart's is good. Yeah. I thought it was. It's a bit self-indulgent.
Yeah, but it's
good.
It's interesting to see his mind front and.
Bobby Heenan's is very good.
I was actually going to say Roddy Piper's.
Yeah.
Is it the one I gave you? Did I give you one? I think I did. I gave you a copy. I gave it to you. Yeah, you've got my. It was mine, but I gave it to you. But it's a great book, and it's and that more covers off like the 70s.
I've read it so much. So
such a good book.
It's actually wrecked.
Yeah.
I read it so
but
much.
Those are the ones I would say because they cover so many periods.
Yeah. Totally.
And some honourable mentions. I'll say Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels one. Austin's one's really really good.
Don't think I've read that one either. Actually.
I've told you it's a really good copy. It's a really good book story, actually. And one of the ones is the weirdest one, and I'm looking forward to him doing a proper one at some point, is The Rock's.
Oh, okay.
The Rock's one is told completely in... You've read it, haven't you? You've got a copy of it. But it's told completely in character.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it's really weird. But it's quite interesting. I'm sure he will do a proper one at some point down the line.
I'd imagine so.
And
I think it'd be quite entertaining. The Rock's
it will be. So
Jerry King Lawler's book's pretty good as well.
Yeah, I've never read that one.
Or Bobby Heenan's.
I've read Bobby Heenan's.
Yeah.
Bobby Heenan's was very, very
film.
good.
He's a great book. He's got two out. I didn't read the second one, but he's got two out. But Roddy Piper's is amazing. Great book.
I would go back and read that again. That was an amazing book.
I have to buy it again because my one's wrecked. It's upstairs, but it's wrecked.
Yeah, so seriously, there are so many ones, but but those are the ones that really stand out to me that I would go back to. And I've read the
Jericho's without shadow.
I'd like to go back and read the Jericho one actually, but the Foley one, I've got a signed copy. I've got it signed.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
The Foley one. So I need to get a new copy of that because I don't want to keep reading the signed copy
because
it's getting really tatty.
I think I might have one for you actually. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then there's the Stone Cold one. I've got a hardback edition. I've got a paperback edition just because I'm a complete gimp and I bought both.
Oh, go on. I'm the same with Foley.
Yeah,
how many different Foley things have I got?
Yeah.
You know.
So as you can see, we do love it, and that is a really important area to us. It's really influenced us. But we're gonna draw it to an end now. Actually, I think.
Cool.
I think we've sat here for almost 3 hours now discussing this.
Wow.
So I want to say, please, if you want to make contact with us to discuss anything we've talked about in this show or in a previous show, or if you want to see either of us in Lycra, please make contact. Mike, how can people get in contact with you?
Well, they can email at manofletters@mikeandrewkennedy.com. If they want to, they can do it through that, or they can contact me through you, I guess.
Yeah, or you're on Twitter and on Facebook.
I don't know what they are though. I don't.
Well, you're on Twitter.
Yeah,
you're
I'm useless now. I have no idea. I don't do that side of my business. So
on Twitter, you are at Man of Letters. I'm actually going to check.
So
now.
Man of Letters MK, something like that.
I'm going to check. And you're on Facebook. And Facebook, just search Man of Letters.
Man of Letters. Search Man of Letters on Facebook, and I'm on there too. And also as well, we will be doing, and we will be documenting, at some juncture, we will be doing 5 more matches. We've been talking about this for years, but we are going to, in 2017, we are going to do 5 more matches. So 5 John Bull versus Mad Mike matches.
And we will document them, and we will present them on our shows.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm just going to... Okay, so it is at Man of Letters MK on Twitter.
There we are.
Also, in that case, please check out Mike's podcast.
Yep. Man of Letters podcast. Go into iTunes, just type in Man of Letters. Not a Man of Letters. That's another great podcast, but it's actually just called Man of Letters. There's a picture of me on a blue avatar, sitting there looking handsome. So yeah, look at that. It's a funny, adult themed comedy podcast without any expletives. I don't really do.
It's not much swearing.
No, not really. No, I don't do the F-bomb at all.
Ever. No.
So
yeah, please check it out. It's a fantastic show, and I'm on one of the up and coming episodes. So
you're on the next one. You're on the one that's on Monday.
Okay.
Which would probably already be. I don't know
out.
when you put this
It will
out.
be.
Yeah.
So you were on the one that was on. It was on about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. There's. He's on a couple. Yeah. He's on a few.
So if you want to get in contact with me, I'm on Twitter at 20th Century Geek. I'm also, if you want to contact me, it's 20thcenturygeek@gmail.com. And I say I'm on Facebook. Please look for Clifford Alvarez or 20th Century Geek. So thank you very much. And just one thing. So this has been the November theme. Has been our wrestling. Next month is December.
Okay.
And I'm going to give a quick taste. We did the whole Halloween horror thing, which I think was a bit atypical. It was good fun. I really enjoyed it, but it was very standard. We're not going to do Christmas films.
Oh, okay. Well, that's I was just about to jump in there and say it must be a Christmas film.
Well, we could have done Christmas films,
know,
standard. We could have done what I considered to be, the anti-Christmas films like Gremlins or Die Hard or those sort of things. Die
Hard's a great Christmas film.
It is a great film. But I wanted to go one step further than that. So we're going to do what I'm calling the theme is going to be called. It's going to be called The Black Christmas. And by Black, I mean Shane Black. So we're going to be talking about Shane Black, who has a strange fixation with Christmas, and we're going to discuss the 4 films he's written and directed, or written and contributed to, that are set at Christmas. That's Lethal Weapon.
Right.
Long Kiss Goodnight.
Oh, great film.
The Last Boy Scout.
Oh my gosh.
And slightly out of the 20th century, but I'm going to stick with it, is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
The only one I haven't seen.
Which is, it's an amazing film. And it's Robert Downey Jr.'s sort of return before Iron Man. So, well worth a look. So I'm really looking forward to getting into those for the Christmas
I'm going to
season.
have to buy these. I don't think I own any of these.
Okay, well, I've got some of them, so you can borrow my copies.
Okay, cool.
So, thank you very much.
No
and it's been good fun. And hopefully you'll hear from us in December. Thanks very much.